Use the government's phrase specific shortage occupations, including nursing or civil engineering. We can also say, though, for some people outside of the EU, things could actually get easier to come in under. Now, the British government has unveiled its new immigration system today. Before Brexit, citizens of EU countries had free movement to the UK. That won't be the case once the Brexit transition period ends at the end of this year. Under this new system, potential migrants will have to meet certain criteria before getting a work visa. So here's an example of how it could work. If you were trying to come from outside the UK into the UK as a university researcher, you'd get 20 points for a job offer, 20 more points for a job offer at a certain skill level, 10 points for speaking English, another 20 points for having a PhD in a science subject, and that would get you to 70 points, which is the number that's required. Here's the UK Home Secretary with more detail.
This is the first time in nearly 40 years where the British government will be in control and will determine its own immigration policy, and will also be able to determine the type of system that it will be in control of. We are bringing an end to free movement of labour, which of course is linked to our membership of the European Union. And as you've already said, we are no longer going to have a route for low-skilled workers to come to the UK. This will now be a single global system that does not discriminate as to whether or not you've come from the EU or from outside of the EU.
Now, this could mean some EU citizens who are currently in the UK arguing that if they had arrived with these kind of restrictions in place, they wouldn't be able to come in. So here's one journalist, Valerio Esposito, whose tweet I'm just going to bring up here. I'm lucky because I've been here for years, but it turns out as things stand, I wouldn't be allowed to work and live in the UK under the new immigration system. This is another example from a woman called Tanya, who's an activist. She says, I came to the UK 11 years ago, PhD in hand. I've taught hundreds of British students, volunteered hundreds of hours. I would not be able to come under this planned system. But there are other people who are very happy with this development. Nigel Farage, leader of the Brexit Party, says this announcement is a very big step in the right direction. Taking back control is good, but exercising that control has to be the priority, he argues. Net migration must go down. Well, perhaps that will happen. We'll have to see. We can also say, though, for some people outside of the EU, things could actually get easier to come in under this system. Here's the BBC's Danny Shaw.
Previously, under the current system, you're coming from outside the European Union. The rules are very strict. There was a limit on the number of skilled labour, the skilled workers who could come in, and also the requirements for what constituted skilled work were tighter than they will be under the new rules. The issue really is for people from the European Union who are used to coming here, living and working freely under freedom of movement rules. That is all going to go.
Now, this new system targets what the government calls low-skilled immigration. There's going to be a new salary threshold, around £25,000, roughly $33,000. It means you have to earn this much or more to get a work visa. There will be some exceptions, we're told, where the threshold will be a little lower, £20,000, around $26,000 for, to use the government's phrase, specific shortage occupations, including nursing or civil engineering. Other sectors, though, will be expected to train more British staff or increase automation. Here's Priti Patel again.
The fact of the matter is now business has a fantastic opportunity to work with this new government to level up across the United Kingdom, invest in people, to use innovation, technology, invest in skills across all sectors.
Now, part of the government's calculation is that it says there are almost 8.5 million people between the ages of 16 and 64 who are economically inactive. In other words, they're either unemployed or not available for work. The government thinks that some of these people could return to the workforce. Well, BBC Reality Check has looked at this. They say 27% of that group are students, 26% are sick, mostly with long-term illnesses. You've also got people who've taken early retirement and people who are full-time looking after their home or their family. Factor all those people in and you're left with 2 million people. Still a lot, but not close to 8.5 million. And here's another graph which is useful. It shows the unemployment rate over the last 10 years in the UK, and you can see it's gone down and down. It's currently the lowest level since 1975. So here's the BBC Newsnight policy reporter, correspondent Lewis Goodall. Lewis has been tweeting context. I can bring this tweet up for you, but that is, context is important. Jobs aren't scarce. We have nearly full employment. There are relatively few British people, A, willing to do some of these jobs, B, available to do them. Lewis says it's hard to see in certain places without low-skilled labour how certain industries can adjust. Well, let's hear the analysis of the director of the Migration Observatory at Oxford University.
A lot of the industries we're talking about are actually not very profitable, some of them may be able to mechanise, rely more on machines. In other cases, they may not have those options and may simply either produce less or in some cases even go out of business.
Other critics say, well, hold on, low salaries don't always equate with low skills. The social care sector is one example. It's a particularly important one because the Conservative Party pledged during last year's election campaign to try and fix a system that cares for older and disabled people. Well, research done by the Skills for Care group has found that the average hourly wage is £8.10, so based on a 40-hour week, that doesn't meet the salary threshold. And we know that in the region of a fifth of those working in the sector are from outside of the UK. And there are currently around 120,000 unfilled jobs in that sector in England alone. Let's hear one person's experience. This is the manager of one dementia specialist care home in Scarborough.
We have a crisis recruiting here and now at this minute. And in my own home, over 10% of the staff are from Europe. If we didn't have them, the home couldn't function. And if we're not there, it puts extra pressure on the NHS. The trouble is, the jobs are highly skilled but low paid, and that's why it falls a problem over this new system the government wants to put into place. Very few frontline care staff will be earning £20,000 a year, I'm sad to say. That's an issue that rests with government as well over its failure to address the social care problems. This is just exacerbating it.
Well, here's Priti Patel again on this social care issue.
The Migration Advisory Committee has been abundantly clear, very clear in their own comments and in their own report as well, that immigration alone is not the route to providing or addressing many of the challenges within social care.
Let's bring in the BBC's political correspondent, Jonathan Blake. Jonathan, I guess it's a big political moment for the Conservatives. After all, Brexit was not entirely, but largely based on restricting immigration.
It was. Immigration and the arguments around it were a huge part of the referendum campaign in the lead up to the vote that eventually saw people decide to leave the EU. And this is a big moment for the government to be able to set out at long last its plans for how it will control immigration after the UK leaves the EU, when, as you've explained, freedom of movement from other European countries will come to an end. As I think you've illustrated in the sequence so far, the government is very clearly putting the emphasis on skilled and higher paid workers coming to the UK, broadly speaking, with a job offer, a salary over £25,600, and those who are able to speak English. Anything that falls outside of those criteria, again, broadly speaking, means that there will be very little chance of somebody being able to come to the UK and fill a lower skilled or lower paid job. The government is keen to demonstrate that it is taking control and it does have an aspiration to overall bring numbers down in terms of those coming to live and work in the UK. But there's certainly no specific target. And as we've heard, there is concern in certain sectors of the UK economy that when these rules kick in a matter of months' time, they simply won't be able to fill the jobs available.
I'm interested you mentioned there's no target, because I remember David Cameron famously set a target and then very much struggled to hit it. But presumably the government has an idea of what success it looks like.
Yes, David Cameron's target, which became an aim, which became an aspiration to get net migration down to the tens of thousands, is something which Boris Johnson and his government don't want to be beholden to. And I think they are very clearly not going to put a figure on it. And Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, who you've heard from just a few moments ago, was very clear today that she wasn't going to set a number which would become an arbitrary target, because that would then become something of a millstone around the government's neck. And realistically, I think the government is aware that it will need to bend and shape this system according to the needs of different sectors in the UK economy. It's all very well saying to businesses that they're going to have to adapt and overcome and automate and find people to fill these jobs from the UK. But if they're not able to do that, then the rules will have to change. And we've seen that already in that pilot for seasonal agricultural workers, which is making a special exception for people coming to the UK to do those jobs from other European countries, and also, for example, nurses who have an exemption, and people will be able to come here and earn less than that salary cap that does protect other jobs.